Hello, welcome, Cabbage here. In War of the Visions, let's do the EX job tier list for MR and lower rarity units. I said in the UR tier list video, but I'm going to separate the UR units from the MR and lower rarity, because when you consider them together, they kind of warp the way that you look at them, in a way that's unhelpful, I think, to both rarities. And then we can understand what MRs are good when you compare them to other MRs. And then especially when you think about them in different contexts, like the new selection quests that are out in JP. But again, to explain the tiers, the no-brainer units, these are the ones that everybody can feel comfortable raising up. The top units, these are some of the best choices among the units to take to EX jobs. Good are solid, but maybe not for everybody. And then niche units, these are maybe the most fun, the most difficult to use perhaps, but have like real niche abilities. Oh, and I should say that from the tier list that I did last month, I got rid of the fans only tier and I added the niche tier. And then finally there's unreleased there at the bottom. And then some thoughts on selection quests, which are MR and lower rarity only. When you're thinking about, leveling characters to build a team for those, pretty much what you want for those teams is the same when you think about putting a UR team together. You want at least one damage dealer, maybe two, maybe three. You want a healer, maybe two, and probably want a tank, and then that's going to be for every element. And then again, since we're thinking about like in the world of MR and lower rarity units, suddenly damage dealers become very desirable. If you compare UR damage dealers to MR damage dealers, there's no comparison. But with the URs out of the picture, then yes, we do want MR damage dealers. And then although this is a tier list for EX job units, probably my guess is that they're going to design the selection quests so that they can be beaten with level 99 units. But maybe you will need level 120 units in order to beat the missions, which are like hard mode for those. So something to keep in mind, I will give some impressions for each selection quest as they come out. Maybe talk about how necessary level 120 units are there. Alright, but let's talk about good units first, since they're kind of the least interesting. First we have a good 15, Baelo. He is a main job knight, which are very rare and very nice. He has the AP break and the TP break. As far as I know, the sub-job knight characters have one or the other. So Baelo could be good for manual play there, either PvE or PvP. At level 120, he only gets like a break, kind of similar to like Mont or Tsubiaki EX, so maybe it wouldn't be necessary to take him to 120, which is why he's in 115. And then in a good 120, I put Tsubiaki. I don't know if I will regret this. I might end up using her and then put her in top 120. Oh, and one big disclaimer up front. I have used very few of these characters at EX jobs. So I'm kind of just going by instinct here, just looking at how they look on the page. If in 4 months you use these characters and they turn out to be much worse or much better than where I have placed them, then please let me know. But yeah, Tsubiaki, she's in good 120. She's kind of like Inori in that she can do a lot of stuff. She's very tanky, she has some damage dealing, she has a little bit of healing as well. And then at EX jobs, she gets like all the breaks, attack, magic, defense, and spirit. And then also Earth Imperil, which might make her interesting for raids. I have used her in the tower in floors where I did want a Earth unit, and yeah, she was great in there. Okay, next let's talk about no-brainers, I guess. Mont, he's very, very solid for a handout main character unit. He's kind of just like an all-around... He could be a tank, but he also could be a bruiser. He's got some support stuff like breaks, and then lowering speed, drain, 100% hit attacks. Very interesting skill set. And then he's so easy to raise that everybody should do it, I think. And then the other no-brainer is Nasia, which might be surprising, but all of the MR tanks are pretty darn good. And then she is probably the best physical tank in the early days of EX jobs. But yeah, just defense goes sky high. She gets some resistances as well. But also with EX jobs, she'll get a little bit of resistance to magic attacks as well. So if you come across against something surprising, maybe you can protect yourself there. And then I think anybody that doesn't have Agrius as an ice element tank should definitely raise up Nausea. I'll do that in my global free-to-play account, I think. Okay, next let's talk about all of the top units. These are all attackers. And then when we get their selection quests, or even now in like the tower and stuff, they're excellent sources of damage. Ol and Seymour, they pick up like more range and like more status effects with their attacks. Seymour was very impressive in the Glacial raid. I saw teams of 4 of him, one punch the level 100 Glacial. That was in multiplayer, of course, but yeah, very impressive. Ramada becomes very interesting. She might be the most interesting of these 3. But like at level 120, she gets a long-range Dispel attack. She gets lots of status effects. And then kind of her base character, her level 99 version, is already really good. She could be a good slash tank with a hate generation with the Spellblade subjob. I think she's got some cool thief abilities, so yeah, really interesting character. She'll be only better with EX jobs. And then Durando and Shuzelt, they will also become good damage dealers with EX jobs. I put them in top 115 because their level 120 skill is not super compelling. So maybe you can save yourself some materials by leaving them at 115. Okay, finally we get to Niche. Let's go to Niche 120. First is Liat. She becomes very interesting. She gets like Charm and Stop, and then also with like very long range and good verticality as well. So very interesting for status effects, and maybe interesting for PvP, where the build cost is very low. She's only like costs like 30 or 40 or something, really, really low, so she can really open up your team building there. Next is Miche. He was already known as a very fast caster. His level 120 skill, he will get a long-range AoE with 100% hit, and then will break Spirit or something, I think it was, do a little bit of damage, so that's really interesting. But then Toad also becomes very interesting. That gets a longer range, I think it's like +3, something crazy like that. That also has some breaks. He could also be an interesting one for low-cost PvP teams. And then Phoebe, she becomes like even more focused on raising the speed of your party. Before she had like quick and haste, but now she'll have like a green mage type of skill, which will increase like the CT gauge or something, and that's like distance and also AoE, so interesting skills there. And then there's Severo. He's kind of a gimmicky character, but his level 120 skill will give him guts. So he can take a hit, go to 0, but then go to 1 instead and keep living. And then also like give haste to people. Very interesting. Also a magic attacker. And then we get to Niche 115. These characters are maybe the least worth taking to EX jobs. Etoa, she really becomes focused on status effects. Her Doom Fist gets sped up by 1 turn, so that's only 3 turns instead of the usual 4, but I don't know. And then there's Cooley. His level 120 skill is like a TP skill, a buff, so I don't think you need that for him. And then his Barrage will get upgraded so that it will cause that new Freeze status effect, which will take away some AP, like a poison, every turn from people that it hits. So that's an interesting support ability, but still his speed is going to be slow and his damage is going to be low, so also I don't know. You really want to use him for that freeze ability. And then last is Zazon. His most interesting EX job skill might be the one where he gives Maneater as a buff to units around him. But his other skills, including his level 120 skill, is like Maneater attack. And I don't know if you want to use such a kind of a low rarity character for damage. So I don't know if he is worth raising to EX jobs. You can still use him for the old ways that you used to use him. Charm, crazy movement, really low speed so he doesn't take up turns in raids, that kind of thing. Okay, and then last we have Unreleased. Leela and Meriduk will come out in 2 weeks. Vistral will come out next week. Vistral I anticipate being in top, either top 120 or top 115. Depends what that last skill is. And then right now I'm trying to gather materials for both him and Camilo, so I'm a little bit busy with that. But yeah, that is a look at the first 4 months of MR units with EX jobs. I am going to build full teams where I bring everybody to 99 at least, and then if I take anybody to EX jobs, I'll let you know about that. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again. Take care.